Hi, I'm Erica Brandt with agcareers.com. Hopefully your resume has done its job and landed you an interview. Now for the part that makes people the most nervous, the interview. While interviewing can be intimidating for you as the applicant, it can also be an intimidating process for the person doing the interview. There is a lot of pressure on that person to find and hire the right person. So knowing that it is a little bit uncomfortable for both of you might help lessen the anxiety. Also, I'm here to tell you that practice can make a world of difference, but we'll talk about that more later. One other key point about interviews that I'd like to discuss before we dive into the details is that the interview is a very important part of the process for you. Not only to sell yourself, but to ensure that the job and company are going to be the right fit for you. It is almost like you're interviewing them. With interviews, you typically get one shot, no do-overs allowed. Doing everything you can to prepare is crucial. Let's begin with overall preparation and being ready for the questions. Most employers are using a form of questions called behavioral-based interview questions. These questions feature a structure that asks the candidate for an example, the actions taken, and the outcome. The philosophy behind this type of question is that past performance will predict future behavior. An example of behavioral questions might be, tell me about a time you had to complete a work project with a team of people. What was your role within the team and contributions to the project, and how did the project turn out? To respond to this question, you want to think of a specific example. At my previous job, I worked with a team of 3 coworkers to complete the planning and coordination of our company newsletter each month. I was appointed as content manager for the newsletter and responsible for brainstorming article ideas with other team members, narrowing down the list of article ideas, contacting people to write the articles, and then editing the articles when turned in. Then I would provide them to the production manager and work closely with them through production to ensure all articles fit our space requirements. The newsletter successfully went out each quarter as planned and really improved internal communication for our organization. Do you see how all 3 parts were answered to the question? Oftentimes, that is the hardest part about behavioral-based questions, getting all 3 aspects in. Also, because they tend to be lengthy questions, it's hard to remember the specifics of all 3 parts. If you've forgotten and know there was something else you were to answer, don't be afraid to ask. What was the other component you were looking for or were interested in? Also, sometimes repeating the question before answering will help you remember. This is okay to do a few times, but try to avoid doing it with all of the questions. Another thing that should be noted about these types of questions, and really all types, is to keep your answers complete, yet concise. You don't want to be rambling on and on. If you feel like maybe you've slipped into one of those rambling sessions and didn't get to the answer of their question, ask if you sufficiently answered what they were looking for, and then try to go back to concise responses for the remainder of the interview. While behavioral-based questions are probably going to be the focus, employers will most likely integrate in some other basic interview questions, such as, tell me a little bit about yourself, or review your training and background and research for me. Again, the agcareers.com website and many others have lists and lists of practice questions. The important thing is to make sure you actually practice them. Having an idea of what you are going to say will relieve your nerves. Practice responding to questions in a mirror or with a friend so that you can see or be critiqued on your nonverbal communication habits and refine those if necessary. Remember that it is okay to pause a little before responding to gather your thoughts. And one other note, while practicing is great and knowing what you are going to say, it's important to tailor your responses and make sure that they don't sound rehearsed. For behavioral-based questions, develop a few responses for each of the practice questions. That way, you'll have a few to choose from. Nailing the first question, which is typically, tell me a little bit about yourself, can really set the tone for the interview and put your nerves at ease if you are well prepared. As I work with people, I like to suggest that they have something around 1 to 2 minutes that highlights a brief review of their background, skills that they possess relevant to the job they are interviewing for, a few relevant previous job accomplishments, and then that they wrap it up by why they feel they'd be a good fit. Again, keeping it brief, concise, relevant, and with some assertiveness should help you through the first tough question. Sometimes interviewers try to put people on the spot or assess certain personal characteristics through weird questioning, like what kind of tree would you be if you had to choose one, or what did you think of the recent advertisement? Keep in mind that most times these questions aren't asked because the interviewer is off their rocker. In the case of the tree, they might be looking for your ability to respond to something unique under pressure or at your creativity level. And about the advertisement, the interviewer might be looking at it if you had done your research or your ability to give candid feedback. Again, thinking through responses to some of these weird questions is always helpful, just in case. What do you do if you are asked an inappropriate interview question, such as, are you married, or what religion or political affiliation are you? While these are a few examples of inappropriate questions, and you hope that the interviewers don't ask inappropriate questions, sometimes that's just not the case. Sometimes interviewers are new or don't know that they can't ask those types of things and have no malicious motivation behind asking them and are oftentimes brought up just in small talk. You need to assess the motivation of the person or their true concern and let that help you determine your response. If they ask you how many kids you have, an inappropriate question, maybe you've gathered that they are really concerned about your ability to travel away from home, if that is part of the job responsibility. In that case, rather than stating the number of kids you have, maybe you'd say something like, I'm fortunate to have a supportive family that will allow me to travel frequently for work, and that my kids enjoy the perks of having a parent that can bring them trinkets and collectibles from throughout the U.S. and hear about where I've been. You really have two ways to respond. You can either answer the question or try to answer what they are really getting at. Simply blurting out that they have asked you an inappropriate question and that you aren't going to answer isn't the right response. As you are asked to come in for interviews and are scheduling them, be sure to find out as much as possible about each interview. Another great way to not let your nerves get the best of you is to be aware of how the process will be handled. Of course, you need to know the date and time, but you might also ask about the expected length of the interview, what style of interview it will be, such as one-on-one, a group, a phone interview, or a series of one-on-one interviews. Also, you should ask for the names and titles of those that you will be interviewing with. And finally, ask if there are any items they'd like you to have prepared or brought with, such as a presentation or portfolio. Prior to going to your interview, research the company. Obviously, the internet provides an easy resource to do so. Find out about products, customers, and news stories, and try to integrate some of your knowledge and research into your responses to questions or in the questions that they ask you during your interview. Discreetly letting the employer know you've done this research will be beneficial and impressive. I mentioned a phone interview, and while not much different from other interviews, there are a few pros and cons to be aware of. One great pro is that you can have notes and your practice questions with responses right in front of you. One downfall is that it is hard to gauge how the interview is going because you have no nonverbal interaction over the phone. Especially with phone interviews, keep your responses short and to the point. Also smile. It can make a difference on how your response comes across on the other line. Most importantly, make sure you are doing your phone interview in a quiet place and on a phone that has good reception. One big pet peeve of mine is when candidates that do phone interviews are walking to their car or they're at a restaurant. Crazy as it seems, it happens, and the background noise is very distracting from the candidate's answers and likely enough for me to rule them out as a candidate. Since you've been in the work world before, I don't have to tell you about the importance of first impressions or what makes a good first impression, but here are a few quick tips. Dress appropriately. You probably know in your gut what type of dress is worn at the organizations you are exploring, and you want to try to stick with something that is one notch up from what current employees might be wearing. For example, in a feed mill, employees might be in jeans. Going in a suit and tie for an interview might be overkill, and nice khakis and a button-down shirt would be more appropriate. But if you went in for an interview on a trading floor, khakis wouldn't be appropriate. A suit and tie would be. Use your gut, and if in doubt, overdressing is always better than underdressing. Arrive to the interview 10 minutes early and inform the receptionist that you are aware you are early for your appointment. That way, the receptionist can wait to inform your interviewer that you are there or let them know that you have arrived early. Giving yourself this extra time will give you time to handle unplanned issues, like a traffic jam, going to the wrong building, or not being able to find parking. And it also gives you a little time to collect your thoughts. Remember to be polite to everyone you interact with. That includes the receptionist. They may have more of an influence on the hiring decision than you think. Make small talk. Weather, sports, and industry happenings are always great starters. If you'd like to take notes, be sure to ask if it is okay. And if you do not want to take notes during the interview, be sure to jot down notes when you get back to the car about what you liked and didn't like so that you don't forget the details. Typically, the employer will ask if you have any questions. This is a great opportunity to learn more about the company and to decide if the job and company are a right fit for you. And not asking questions looks bad in the eyes of the interviewers. Be sure, though, that you ask intelligent questions. Here are a few examples of good questions. How is employee performance measured at your organization? Does the company have a code of ethics? Please describe the leadership or management style of the company. What qualities do the most successful employees in your company possess? What is the company's attitude toward professional and educational advancement? Another tip to help you identify the culture of the organization and if the company is a good fit for you can be gained through observation. How were you treated during the interview? Were phrases used frequently during the interview familiar? How does the environment feel? How prepared were the interviewers, and did they provide you with the necessary details for the interview? And did they make you feel comfortable? Your instincts on a few of these items can really help mold your decision if the company and job are the right fit for you. You are almost done with the interview, and many people would end the interview with questions to the employer. But the right way to end the interview is to ask for the job, if you think it's a good fit. Reiterate why you are a good fit for the job and that you are interested and want the position. Be sure to thank the interviewers for their time and ask what the next steps are or when you should plan on hearing from them again. Again, remember to jot notes following the interview so that you don't forget important details from interview to interview. Another idea that can help set you apart is to send a thank you, preferably a written thank you. But if you know the employer's time frame for hiring is tight, an email thank you would be more appropriate. If you do not hear from the employer in the expected time frame, give them a couple of days and then follow up to see how things are progressing with their recruiting process. While losing your job can be difficult, you can manage through the transition. We wish you all the luck and don't hesitate to contact us with questions or email them to agcareers@agcareers.com.